All right, let's jump right in. We've talked before about how the Constitution separates powers within the government, between the president, Congress, and the courts. But what about protecting us from the government itself? Well, today we're diving into another crucial safeguard for our liberty, federalism. It's this really ingenious design that divides power not just in Washington, but across the entire country.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of the American founders for a second. They had a huge problem to solve. They knew they needed a government that was actually strong enough to work, but they were absolutely terrified of creating a new king or a new tyranny. So the big question was, how do you give a government power without making it dangerous? That was the puzzle they had to figure out.
The founders really approached this whole problem like architects. They weren't just writing laws, they were designing a structure. They needed a blueprint for freedom, a system that would make tyranny difficult by its very design. And their solution ended up being totally foundational to the American system.
Now, what's so interesting is their core belief, which was totally born from their own experience with the British monarchy. They were absolutely convinced that piling all governmental power into one single place, one capital city, one group of rulers, was a guaranteed recipe for tyranny. So they decided to do the exact opposite. They decided to spread that power out. And that brings us to their brilliant solution, federalism. It sounds like a complicated word, but it's actually a pretty profound idea. Instead of having just one center of power, you create two. You have a national government to handle big national issues, and then you have state governments to handle things more locally. So power isn't just separated, it's divided up geographically. So where are all the rules for this new system written down? I mean, this wasn't just some casual agreement, right? It was a really carefully constructed plan. Let's take a look at the actual blueprint. The whole framework, the entire plan, is laid out right there in the Constitution. It's not vague. It specifically defines what the national government is allowed to do and, just as importantly, what it can't do. The best way to think about it is like a very specific to-do list for Congress. Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress what are called enumerated powers. These are the big, national-level jobs. Things like managing trade between the states, creating a single currency for the whole country, and, of course, defending the nation. And here's the critical part. If a power isn't on that list, Congress generally isn't supposed to have it. And this is the other half of the puzzle. The 10th Amendment, it's like the constitutional safety net. It basically says, hey, if we didn't specifically give a power to the federal government in this document, then it belongs to the states or it belongs to the people. It is the ultimate statement that the national government's power has a clear and definite stopping point. Okay, so that's the blueprint. But how does this all actually work in practice? Day to day. What does this division of power really look like? Well, here's a pretty good breakdown. The national government, they're in charge of the military and foreign policy, the big picture stuff. But your local police department, the schools your kids go to, the public health rules in your town, those are mostly handled by your state and local governments. The whole design makes sure that the decisions that affect your daily life are made by officials who are closer and, hopefully, more accountable to you. Now, it's not a perfectly clean split. There are definitely areas where both levels of government have a role to play. I mean, think about it. You pay both federal and state taxes, right? And that highway you drove on this morning, it was probably built with a mix of federal money and state management. This kind of cooperation, and sometimes tension, is a constant part of the system. So why? Why go through all the trouble of creating this complex system of divided and shared powers? Well, it all circles back to that original, fundamental goal, protecting liberty. This is really the genius of the whole design. By creating multiple centers of power, federalism essentially builds a firewall for freedom. If one level of government starts to get too powerful, the other level can push back. It decentralizes authority, which makes it way, way harder for any single person or group to grab enough power to become a tyrant. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. The goal here is balance. It's not about dominance. Now, it's true that federal law is supreme when the Constitution gives it power, but that power is intentionally limited. Federalism is what stops the national government from controlling every single part of our lives, and it preserves a vital role for state and local self-government. So, all of this brings us to the most important part of the entire system. You. Yeah, you. This whole blueprint for liberty isn't some self-maintaining machine. It requires us, the citizens, to be active participants. It requires stewardship.
This is such a powerful idea. The authority that government officials have, whether they're at the local, state, or national level, it isn't theirs. They don't own it. It's entrusted to them by us. And as citizens, it's our job to make sure they're being good stewards of that trust.
So, how can you be a good steward? Here's a little plan of action. Don't just learn about federalism, get engaged with it. First, actually read the parts of the Constitution we talked about. Second, figure out what your own state or local government actually does. Make a list. Third, and this is a big one, go see it in action. Attend a city council or school board meeting. And finally, share what you've learned. Understanding the system is the very first step to preserving it. Because at the end of the day, federalism is this constant reminder that a self-governing people can't just be passive observers on the sidelines. This isn't just some dusty old blueprint from the past. It's a living, breathing responsibility for all of us today. Liberty requires our active, informed engagement. Thanks for learning with us.